The first two semifinals at Wimbledon are set, and here at Intuitive Tennis, we have a 100% accurate prediction. I have Sabalenka against Anisimova, and I also have Fritz against Alcaraz. But let's not talk about the bottom half of the women's draw, where I have Rybakina, and let's conveniently forget the fact that I had close to half of the first round wrong. This has been a tournament of upsets, but as we near the end of the tournament, the favorites are looking pretty strong. Now, let me start off today's video with the match of the day, in my opinion, which was Sabalenka against Siegemund. And Laura Siegemund, I had going out in the first round because she didn't do well in the warm-up tournament in Bad Homburg, where she lost in the first round to Azarenka in straight sets. So I had Laura going out to Peyton Stars in the first round. But very similar to Tatiana Maria, who won the tournament in Queens by beating unbelievable players. She took out Leila Fernandez, Muchova, Rybakina, Madison Keys, and in the final she beat Anisimova, who was in the semifinal of Wimbledon. That tournament was one of the most amazing things that I've ever seen on a tennis court. And a fascinating thing was that Tatiana Maria did this by slicing pretty much all her forehands and backhands. Maybe she hit over the ball when the opponent would come to the net. And interestingly, Laura Siegemund employed a very similar tactic in this year's Wimbledon. And it is so fascinating that this tactic can work. And I personally love when players employ a different style. It makes it a lot more entertaining to watch. And I will say that to some extent, this tactic of slicing the ball low, and not only slicing, but also hitting a short slice that lands around the half court, even the GOAT, Novak Djokovic, struggled with that shot when he played Alex de Minaur. Now, of course, Novak started to figure out how to play those, but how to really miss any of them towards the end of the match. However, Sabalenka struggled today against Siegemund, and she was making a tremendous amount of errors, and Siegemund put herself in a position to win this match. She won the first set, lost the second set, was up a break in the third, 3-1, lost her serve. Score was tied at 3-all, and this is where the match got super entertaining. Siegemund breaks Sabalenka again, is up 4-3 serving, and this is where I think Laura could have gotten the victory, but she ended up losing her serve. And at 4-all, I was so entertained because it is here where Sabalenka started to slice her forehand. And the crazy thing was that Sabalenka slicing her forehand drew errors from Siegemund. So this turned into a slice fest. And what I find so fascinating about Sabalenka is that most of the time when players slice, it's more of a finesse shot, but Sabalenka's forehand slice was a power slice accompanied by a loud grunt. Let's be real here. Sabalenka's grunt is possibly the loudest and maybe even the longest in WTA history. But in any case, she would slice these forehands and the swing was huge. She would finish somewhere around here. And the crazy thing was that this strategy worked and Sabalenka ended up winning this match 6-4 in the third. I picked Anisimova to go in the semifinals because I see her as potentially being at the very top of the game. To me, she's one of the best ball strikers on planet Earth. I can compare her to Sabalenka, but I think Anisimova actually hits the ball cleaner than Sabalenka. She has the power on the serve, she has the power on the forehand, and she has the power on the backhand. And I've always tracked Anisimova's progress throughout all these years. And when she had her breakthrough season, where she made the semifinals of Roland Garros, I was privately saying the same things I'm saying now, that she has the potential to be at the very top of the rankings. But then Amanda took some time off, and I think it served her well because she came back with a whole new approach to the game of tennis. I've talked in previous videos during this tournament how a healthy approach to tennis is very, very important. And for me, someone like Carlos Alcaraz has a very healthy approach to the game. You can't make your entire life be all about tennis. You're going to have to balance it out a little bit. So Anisimova actually went to college in her time off from the tour. And when she came back to the tour, again, her approach to the game was a lot more healthy. And I think she is now ready to attack the very top of the rankings. She is in the top 10 for the first time in her career. And in the past, it wasn't really the Anisimova game that was letting her down. It was more her mental game. I think she's going to have good chances to score the upset against Sabalenka. And interestingly, the first 4 times that Anisimova played Sabalenka, Anisimova won. So the head-to-head was 4-0, and then Sabalenka scored a win. The head-to-head now is 5-3. I just think that Sabalenka is a big match player, and she is number 1 in the world for a reason. So I'm still sticking to my prediction that Sabalenka will win this tournament. She's out for revenge, and she has this ability to figure out how to put these victories together. Even when she's not playing her best, she's figuring out how to get the W. And this is what champions do. She did it against Raducanu, and she did it against Siegemund. And I do have a feeling that against Anisimova, Sabalenka is going to come out playing her best tennis. See, having been in these big matches before, semifinals of slams, finals of slams, is a big advantage. And this is Anisimova's first Wimbledon semifinal. So it's quite plausible that she's going to come out maybe a tad nervous. But again, she is a big-time player, a former semifinalist of a Grand Slam, and she does have the capability of scoring the upset, like I said before. But speaking of players that have been in these situations before, Taylor Fritz said that he feels completely different now at Wimbledon versus in the previous years. Taylor said that when he used to make quarters in the past, it felt like a big deal. But now Taylor feels like he belongs to the very top of the game. And I think this is a big difference maker. And this is Taylor's best chance to beat Carlos Alcaraz. Both played well in the quarterfinal matches. Maybe this was Alcaraz's best performance so far. He beat Cameron Norrie very comfortably. Taylor Fritz played 2 excellent sets. Then he had a big dip in form, lost the third set 6-1, and then was down a break early in the fourth. But Taylor got his game together, started playing consistent again, and toughed this fourth set out that he won 7-6 against Khachanov. So the 2 surfaces where Taylor has a better chance to beat Alcaraz are indoor hard court and also grass. But even if his chances are better on these surfaces, I still think this is going to be a very difficult match for Taylor to win because he's going to have to play the best tennis of his life. Taylor is going to have to serve perfectly, and on the return games, Taylor is going to have to take some cuts on the return. And here is where the problem lies for Taylor, because he likes to stand close to the baseline, and if the serve comes very fast, he's going to chip it back. If he chips the ball back, advantage Alcaraz. Now, where Taylor is going to have good chances if Carlos Alcaraz comes out not serving well and missing a lot of first serves. And it's here where Taylor is going to have to be ultra aggressive on the second serve of Carlos Alcaraz. He's going to have to take his chances, go for the winner on some of these returns, hit very hard and deep, and he's going to have to figure out a way how to get the upper hand in the rallies and maybe sneak in a break here and there. If Taylor serves well and we get into a lot of tie breaks, unfortunately for Taylor, Carlos Alcaraz is unbelievably clutch as of late, especially in tie breaks. So what will need to happen is perfect serving from Taylor, poor serving from Alcaraz for Taylor Fritz to have a chance to win this match. I don't see it happening, unfortunately, for Fritz, and I have Alcaraz going through the final. Now, in yesterday's video, I talked about Sinner facing Shelton and what Ben needs to do to have a chance against Jannik, but I want to quickly touch upon the quarterfinal tomorrow between Djokovic and Cobolli. And Djokovic likes to help a lot of the young players, and he practices with them, and he also gives them advice. Djokovic said in an interview that he received help from older players when he was coming up on the tour. For example, Ivan Ljubicic gave him some great advice, and he's just giving back what he received as a young player to the young players now. When Djokovic lost to Menchik in the Miami final, he said that these guys practiced a lot together. And in the case of Cobolli, Djokovic practiced with Cobolli a lot. And you would think that this is an advantage for Djokovic, the fact that he played with Flavio and he figured out his game. But I actually do believe that this is an advantage for Cobolli and not for Djokovic. Because what happens with young players when they face a legend is that they get a little bit nervous. They're in awe of who they're on the court with. And this might be especially true if they're facing one of these legends in a late stage of a Grand Slam tournament. Andy Roddick on the Surf podcast talked about when he played Andre Agassi at the Miami tournament for the first time. He was extremely nervous. So the fact that Cobolli practiced with Djokovic before, I think this is actually an advantage for Flavio. Now, will he have a chance against Djokovic? I don't think so. And I was very unsure of Cobolli's chances on grass, and it's for that reason why I picked Menchik to go through the fourth round and not Cobolli. But I am very impressed with Cobolli's game, and he's had a very poor 2025 season. It was only at the tournament in Bucharest where he turned it on. He got the 250 title on clay. He won another title in Hamburg, and I did watch both of his matches in Halle, and these were very impressive. So he beat Fonseca in the first round in a tough three-set match, and then he beat Shapovalov in another tough three-set match. If I remember correctly, both of these matches were 7-6 in the third. And I was so impressed with how Cobolli played against Fonseca in that first round. The level was insanely high, and the court in Halle was very fast. So I had the impression that Cobolli was more of a slow court player, that he would do well on a slower hard court, or for sure on clay he was going to do quite well. But I was unsure of his skills on grass. And listening to some of his interviews throughout this week, even Flavio himself wasn't sure that he can play on grass. But when you reach the quarterfinals of Wimbledon, you can play on grass. So even though he's practiced with Djokovic and is probably more comfortable with him, he's not going to be in awe of him. Djokovic is going to figure out a way how to wrap this match up. Even if he comes out playing poorly, at some point in the match, he's going to get these teeth into it, and Djokovic is not going to lose this one. Guys, if you haven't yet, subscribe to Intuitive Tennis so you don't miss out on the next video, which will be released after the quarterfinals tomorrow. I will see you guys then.